Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Crossover, your UK-based Philadelphia 76ers podcast. As usual, I am joined by Sam Oakley. Sam, good to see you again.
And yourself, Ben?
And it's a historic episode today. This is the first time we've actually got a guest on. We've tried, we failed, but we finally got a guest on, and we have Ben Scaife of, the Philadelphia 76ers UK fandom community. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So we do have topics we want to get to. Just quickly, though, and I'm going to be putting you on the spot here because I don't think I actually mentioned this before we entered, but can you just tell us briefly how you got into Philadelphia sports? Because I know you're Phillies, I know you're Eagles, and by extension, Flyers as well. So how is it you landed on Philly?
Long story short, I started getting into basketball just as a way of trimming off weight during the one-off season from rugby when I was about 15, 16. So this is a long time ago. And then from there, I started looking at players. It was the beginning of sort of information flowing a little bit better. Still pre-internet, but still waiting for information. You know, magazines are coming out, papers, all sorts of stuff was starting to happen. And it just went from there. So the old W.H. Smiths in Hull where I grew up used to have a little imported video section. Go in there, get some highlighted videos, take them home on a Saturday, watch them all weekend. And from there, it was honestly just Charles Barkley. That's where it started. Watching him play, I'm not that tall. I'm quite wide, quite a big-bodied guy. So I identified quite heavily with him. And then from that point on, reading his story, learning about him, it just made me fall in love with him as a person and as an individual. He sort of tainted that a little bit recently with some stuff he said, but back then he was the bee's knees. And then it was reading about the Sixers, reading about that team that he was on just before he got traded. They all seem to be quality blue collar guys, and that identified with me coming from a blue collar area in East Yorkshire. So that was it, and it just snowballed from there. Went over to get my first Sixers game not long after Iverson had been drafted, and the hospitality of the people, as Sam will tell anybody, a great advocate for sort of Philadelphia community over here is Sam. He'll tell anybody that the community over there is very welcoming, very warm, and you just fall in love with the place. And once you've been there, it starts to cascade. I've always been into American football, so that was the Eagles then. British Hockey League launch, so that means the Flyers, and then obviously the Phillies are just across the road.
Brilliant. That's an awesome story. I really, really like that. So that's two of you now that are Charles Barkley enthusiasts. So Sam, I know is still searching for that elusive Barkley jersey.
Number 32 one, right?
Yes. I mean, it could be a DH gate job, but I know one of the jersey sellers, throwback store, Mark, who's a Sixers fan, has got a legit one, but he wouldn't tell me how much he paid for it when I DM'd him. I was like, how much would you sell it for? He's like, if I told you how much I paid for it, I wouldn't even sell it for triple that or so, he said. I was like, oh, wow. So
I think if you found anything less than 300 quid for one of those, you're laughing, wouldn't you? I mean, that is the holy grail, or certainly one of them. But no, I mean, that's a fantastic story. I absolutely love that. I mean, I think especially just with the whole romanticism surrounding, just getting up early, W.H. Smith, going to get the magazines in and around sort of that era of the, Michael Jordan on the front covers and whatnot. That's awesome. So that does still tell me, though, that unfortunately, like us, you are still waiting on that first Sixers title.
Yes, unfortunately so.
Which brings us to our next point, I guess, is obviously technically we're still searching for it. We're technically still arguing that we could maybe get that next season. I say rather tentatively. So the first step on that journey would be the draft. Where do you stand with the draft? We've discussed so many different options. I've personally written about the different options, tweeted. Sam and I we've gone back and forth. Is it as easy as just take Ace at 3?
It isn't, no. And for the reasons you've mentioned before, for me, it comes down to really two choices. Do we go with that player that could eventually be that key part of a post-Embiid Sixers? Pairing up with, not pairing, but you know what I mean, with McCain, Maxey, and someone else. Or do we need that player that will slot in, that we always hunt for free agency? A guy who can put the ball on the floor, but also can shoot from distance, and it can pass out of double teams or just move the ball around. And that's really where we're going to find out what the front office are thinking. I think the draft is going to tell us, because unlike some sports where it's free agency then the draft, we've got it the other way around in the NBA, where it's the other way. So I think we're going to find out where the front office is thinking when they make this pick. Personally, and I know you're going to ask me, so I'm going to do it now. Personally, it is ace, because I think that's what we need to start be thinking about.
Yeah.
But if the front office is going, well, we're going to struggle to bring back people like Grimes, we're going to struggle to keep Edwards, we're going to struggle to keep Butler and all the other role players that we sort of kind of looked out on over the last year, then I think we might consider trading down and maybe increasing either the value of what we get back by either getting more picks or player and picks.
Brilliant. I think we're sounding it sort of again in that realm of, oh God, there's too many options, which is the curse of that number 3 pick. Everything else seems straightforward. Every pick is straightforward apart from this one. I genuinely think that. So, Sam, I don't want this to end up in a bit of ping pong between you and me again about what's going on in our heads, but has any clarity been shed for you? I mean, what are you thinking?
Well, I think that I'm obviously saying if we pick 3, we take ace, but I've also I thought the Nets only had 3 picks. They got 4. I didn't realize they had 4 first round picks. So part of me is like, really would love a trade, like maybe go back to I think they're at 10, their first pick, or 11, 9, 10, something like that. And then they've got obviously the late 20s ones, and just do you move back and go stuff it, take K2 if he falls to that far. Or if you think he's going to fall that far, if Maury does his research. Part of me is like that, really. And then take another player, athletic young player, like Ben said, if you can't get the re-signing of Grimes. Because I don't know. I mean, for me, Grimes he's impressed me in his time. He's been with us, but he's not been consistent like that throughout his career so far. So it's like, is he going to demand a big payday? And if his agent's great, fair play, and he gets that, then we got the right to match it. But I don't know. So it depends. I think, like Ben said, it depends what the front office, does. But yeah, so I'm either way. You either trade back and get a couple of picks, or you take it. I don't want to trade it for an aging player. I've seen the rumors of which we spoke about before, KD for a pick and a player. I don't want to do that. Don't get another aging player and go in young.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, and I think one of the things I was listening to when they talked about the KD thing is you are basically, because KD's only got a 1-year contract. So you are inheriting and relying upon KD to say, you know what, I would like to stay in Philadelphia for the long haul. There's no chance in hell he says that. This isn't his sort of place, I don't think. 1 ounce of criticism and he'll fire his burners up again. And I could just see him just getting his way over to somewhere like the Lakers, or even someone like the Knicks. I mean, this just isn't his sort of city. It's not his sort of team. And to then throw everything at the Suns with regards to picks would be so short-sighted. But I think the worst thing about it is it's the sort of thing we'd do. But I think you raise a really good point there, Ben, about this idea of, well, actually the draft coming forward, free agency just creates a whole lot more unnecessary issues. So it brought me to an article that I was just grabbing up there about the free agents the Sixers could realistically go after. And we talked about Yabu and Grimes, and even Yabu now is looking like that could be quite unrealistic, which is such a crying shame. I mean, I really hope we can get that sorted. But the sort of free agents I'm seeing us linked with, based off of our own cap space, these are the 4 that we got linked with. Bol, which certainly an interesting one. Taurean Prince, Trey Lyles, and Justin Edwards, because we could technically then give him a professional contract, so he's not even a free agent. This is the sort of movement we've got. This is the sort of leeway we've got in terms of making moves. So with that in mind, I guess we have to swing for the fences, you could argue, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. And you could say that is a kicker of going for Ace, like Sam said, sticking at 3, going for that. The rumor I heard, just going back to the KD point, the rumor I heard recently was up until recently, you're right, 3 is where the draft gets interesting. But that's starting to turn on its head with the rumor that I heard recently where the Spurs might be interested in a KD trade. I don't know how that would work from a playing point of view on the court with those two, with Wembanyama and him. But from a point of view that if they can also, get something else or what have you, just for offloading, like you say, Ben, he's on his last year, so it's not going to be as expensive as you expect, but it's certainly going to involve their number 2. If that happens, then all bets are off because someone could be going for Ace. The Suns might want Ace. They might see him as a successor. Before coming on, just while I was having my tea, flicking through stuff, apparently Beal's not wanted back. And they've just had, a couple of players involved in the new coach decision. So it's not looking great over there from their decision-making process, in my eyes anyway. So that could be turn the draft on his head. But like Sam says, if it stays as it is, you've got to swing for the fences and go with that player that's got the most upside, because we don't know what we're going to get with Embiid. Are we going to get 40 games? Are we going to get 50 games? Are we going to get 60 games? Is this the last year? Is this the last year we have him? And he moves on, and we move him on.
And
there is hard to say.
There is, of course, Giannis. Obviously, I don't think he would ever get him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we'd get him. I know some people are saying, "Oh, we could," but we're not. But Giannis is somewhere in the movement here. I think he's going. I genuinely think Giannis is on the move, which is another team the Spurs could aim at, and that would again open up the playing field for more teams to look to trade up, to look to get involved in this in a 3-team somehow. I've even heard again Utah apparently want that number two, obviously, but number 3 pick as well, and are happy to take a swipe at Ace. So I'm not envious of this front office at the moment, and it's a really nice situation to be in. But ultimately, it links back to this idea that we've had well previous: is do we trust them to be able to land this? And on one hand, I'm saying Daryl Morey, when it comes to the draft, rarely misses. Elton Brand, when it comes to anything basketball related, misses quite frequently. So somewhere in the middle is either going to be sink or swim for the Sixers here. So I really am apprehensive about this, and I think we're just going to have to cross everything and hope for the best. But also, what we haven't really considered is there's a second round as well, which we could pick up. And I just want to briefly touch on this. We could pick up some nice pieces in the second round. We've got some good ones, and we've got some history of getting some good ones previously. So, Sam, I'm not expecting you to give me some names here because, finding the second round gems is difficult for the best front office in the world. But what sort of person should we maybe be after in that second round?
Oh, wow. I think it depends on... I want wings because I think that's the one area we really lacking. So it depends on who we keep going into next season, and what he does. Like, I don't want another Eric Gordon. I don't want another, I like Kyle Lowry, but another Kyle Lowry. I know he's a guard, but you don't want these older veteran players. I think we've got to go young and more athletic and players that can sustain that long period of time, because even though I didn't watch every game this season, I go back to when I was watching every minute of every game during the process era, and it was fun watching those athletic guys develop. Jeremy Grant developing, he's not super athletic, but Robert Covington, and then other players that just or just grinding, but they've got the right attitude as well to come with that. So like your TJ McConnell's is now going to be playing in the finals. So I think for me, I'll just go more athletic. So I would go, small forward, power forward type players that have got that athleticism in them. I think at guard, if we keep Grimes, we've got three legit. It doesn't matter who your fourth guard is really, because you can have three that are legit enough, so you don't really need to worry about the fourth one so much. So for me, I'd go forward personally. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just learning from last year's mistakes, isn't it? It's that roster construction was doomed from the offset, and I will come to you here, Ben, because we've said our piece about what went wrong, who's to blame, front office, players, coach. I mean, how did you assess last season, and what don't you want to see next season, and what do you want to see next season?
Well, put it this way, guys. This beard was brown before last season, so that's exactly what's happened to me. No, I think the best way to describe it would be just a mess. I think we kept hoping that things would turn around and that people would get healthier quicker than we thought. I think we've discussed this before. I think playing in the Olympics was a mistake for Joel. I know we've all discussed it many times, and it's worth putting out because obviously it's my first time on. It's my opinion that was a mistake. I don't think he was 100%. I think he overrode the advice. I think that's the current rumor anyway, that he overrode the health advice that he got given. And then it just fell apart from there. Maxi getting injured, McCain getting injured. It's probably the wrong way around, but anyway, then getting injured, it just started to fall apart. And I don't think we were prepared for a long period of time without the big fella. And this is something I want to see for next year. I want to see coach just to literally have almost two systems in place, one for when Joel's available, one for when he's not, no matter who we pick up, so that we've got that option of, all right, he's not going to be playing tonight, or he needs to sit for a bit of a time. Can we play a different style? Can we play a different way? And I think that's why we struggled over the years, is that we don't know how to play without him. And then when we don't have him, that's it. We've all seen the numbers about his plus minus both on and off the floor for Joe. It's ridiculous swing that we suffer when he falls off the floor. So I would want us to start to look at players that can play, like Sam says, that are like athletic and that can play on their own, that can attack the basket off the dribble. I think our ethos many years ago, just to go back in a bit of time, our ethos many years ago of when Simmons was still here was, we want shooters and that's it. We're not bothered about anything else. We want shooters and around Embiid and Ben, and that's it. And I think that was a massive mistake to just focus on shooters, because the rest of the league was transitioning to people who could move off the ball and who could attack off the dribble. And we fell apart. We got Jimmy. That helped because he could attack the basket. But in that series we don't like to talk about against Toronto, again, they knew that if they could stop Jimmy coming to the basket, they could stop Joel. That's it. They didn't have to worry about anything else because it's shooters. And what's the first thing that falls off during the playoffs is your shooting. So I think we need to look at, like Sam says, I think Sam's 100% on, athletic players that will attack the basket, that are young enough to be a little bit different, a little bit brave. I think we've been too safe too many times. And having that second system so that we can play without Joel on a regular basis.
And I think, Sam, I'm going to come to you in a sec. This brings up two really nice, two points here. Firstly, it always does seem to be that whatever the latest trend is in terms of playing style, we're 3 or 4 years behind. And I don't know how it continuously ends up like this. But also, I look at the NBA finals that starts tonight, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you look at both the Pacers and you look at the Thunder, the amount of young athletes in there is quite astonishing. That's the mold. It's not old veterans, because there was this belief, certainly by our head office, that you need veterans who've done it and have been there before, when in actuality, it's young guys. So that's been quite alarming. And then Ben's also raised a fantastic point about having a backup when Embiid's not there. We should absolutely have a contingency plan, which has led a couple people, and this one coming to you, Sam, because I know that you've probably watched more college ball than any of us, because it led a couple people to think that maybe we should be looking at Maluach or Maluach. I know I'm pronouncing that poorly, from Duke, with a trade down. That sort of is a rumor that's gathered a bit of legs recently. Is that wise?
I mean, I only watched March Madness, so he might have played more like appealing in the conferences. But I thought during March Madness, the best center was Derek Queen. Personally, if I had to choose one, and maybe it's because he's pretty good at shooting as well, and that's a trap. And for me, if you're going to replace Embiid and you like a center that can shoot threes, because Morey obviously likes that statistical, and so does Nurse. He likes that player. Derek Queen would be more the one that I would choose personally. He's only I think he's like 6'10", 6'11", so he's not 7 foot per se, like Joel. But that, and he doesn't look as athletic. If I'm honest, he doesn't look like he's a biggish lad. But I think he would be a good center, and he can shoot the three. So if I had to choose a center, I would in the top 10, and we moved back, and I was in charge of the pick, that would be my guy. But yeah, I mean, he was obviously good, right? Because that whole Duke team was pretty stacked and good. The whole starting five, really. I mean, the fact they're going to have 3 players picked in the top 10, probably top 12, and then they've also got other players being projected to go in the second round. I think they reckon all 5 players will end up in the NBA this year at some point, whether that's through the first and second rounds. So that's how stacked they were. Obviously, we don't know how they're going to plan out, but the fact that things that they're predicting that teams are going to take, K2 and obviously Cooper Flag in the top 10, top 8, and then obviously the center could sneak into the top 10, but definitely going to be probably in the top 15 from all the mock drafts. Shows you how good they were. But so that's why it's hard to judge him, because he had 2 legit people around him. Whereas in college, I like to look for where it's just 1 or 2 players. And I know that's why some people criticize Ace, because him and Butler didn't get his team to qualify for the Harper, not Butler, to qualify for the March Madness tournament. So, but yeah, personally, I think Derek Queen's a better center if I had to choose one.
I do find the Maluach discussion interesting, because again, there's no doubt he's a great player. I think he'll probably be one of those really defensively sound centers that can maybe do a bit extra on the other side. Perhaps I'm underselling him, but he seems very raw. And to go at number 5 or number 6 as a center with little offensive capability, it seems very reminiscent of the Wiseman pick a couple years back, and that's got me quite apprehensive. Now, I don't see us really doing it. I feel like the reason we got Boner is so we can start having a bit of a contingency plan. It's not as if he's the full, the guy with like, Joel's gone, give him the keys, but he's just, Joel's gone, we can operate. So the idea of having Maluach is a bit of an interesting one. In that same report about Maluach, the other thing that they talked about was Trey Johnson from Texas. Now, I'll be the first one to fully embrace having a Longhorn here. But it links back to what Ben just said, quite literally what he just said with regards to the shooters, because Johnson is projected as one of the best shooters in the whole class, but he's undersized, he's a bit weedy. That would be relatively short-sighted, all things considered, don't you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I've got the Tankathon. Shout out to those guys. I think the process and them are interlinked for the rest of the time. First round mock. They've done the whole 2 rounds out open. And you're right, Sam. Queen looks like he's projected at 12 to the Bulls by them. Whereas Maluach is 9. So you are right in saying you get back to the sort of 10 when you're thinking about where, if that's who you want to take. After that, big guys all look 6'11 plus, 250 plus. I would certainly say I'm not a fan of going big and heavy. I think we need to be quick and fast when Joel's not on the floor. I like the sound of Johnson as that. If we drop a couple of picks out or a couple of places out, excuse me, I like the sound of Johnson. But like you say, he is slight. And you wonder if it's just the shooting. You would prefer someone like VJ instead if you were going down that route, and then you wouldn't want to drop that far. Otherwise, you're gonna risk it losing him. There is a lot of good, not young but good sort of guards. It seems to be that appear later on in the later rounds. And we're not talking short guards either. We're talking 6'5", 6'6", sort of 210. So the size you would like. Like you said, Ben, when you talk about the size, we need to make sure that we've got. So they're there. So I think second round, it's going to be decided by what we do on the first. It always is, isn't it? So I think if we do drop down, and Johnson's an option, but I'm with you, Ben. I don't think it's worth it from just a shooting point of view. I think we need to look at these guys that can move and they can attack themselves, that do actually have a 3-point game, but it's not their identity.
Yeah, I think that, that's a nail on the head. I think you got to maybe get a bit experimentative in the second round, like you said, but that first round, play it as safe as you can, but also being as ambitious as you can. It's a really weird one to try and straddle, but we don't have any more time to make any silly errors. I think in the second round, and like I said, I'll save my time for the names and whatnot in the second round at a different date, but there's a fella called Cedric Coward, 6'6" point guard, can sort of play the combo guard, decent 3-point shooter, decent size, of course, maybe could get an extra couple of inches over time. That is the fella I'm sort of looking at as, if we could just steal him in the second round, that'll be a lovely pick to have in that backcourt as a development piece. But let's move away from the Sixers, which seems like a bizarre thing to say on a Sixers podcast, because there's actually been basketball being played. And I want to start out east because, let's be frank, it's been a lot more interesting. How many of us really thought the Indiana Pacers would be getting to the conference finals?
Well, yeah, I thought you predicted it, right?
I predicted them to get to the conference finals after they, to the finals after they got to the conference finals, but I never thought they'd get this far in the first place. I just don't think I realized just how good they were until I watched them. I'm not sure about you guys, but it's that athleticism. We talked about it, the Nemhards of the world, Shepherd. We got Toppin, Siakam. I said on the last part, he deserves so much credit for how good he's been. Miles Turner's rejuvenated. Of course, how could I forget Neesmith in when he was just draining threes left, right, and center? I mean, look, the Pacers got lucky, but they played it was a rather simple game, a simple brand of basketball, but it worked effectively. And for whatever reason, the Knicks, despite having more talent, couldn't find an answer. And we'll theorize the reasons behind this. How do we interpret this? I mean, are the Pacers the best team in the East? Who wants it?
You've got to say they are, because that's where they are. They've landed at the finals. They're the East representative. You can't. You can argue about Boston. They were beaten up. They were injured. You can argue about the Knicks themselves. They were worn down, and we all know that Tibbs has that reputation of wearing his team down through his rotation patterns and the way that he keeps, his rotations running. So you've got to say that while it might be surprising, you might be going, I feel weird saying this, but the Pacers have to be called that, at least for the moment anyway. Certainly from that point of view.
That is nuts. So, Sam, did the Pacers win it or did the Knicks lose it? And also, can I just quickly add to all of this? We can add Josh Hart to the list of people who won't do anything in terms of 3-point getting against any team unless it's against the 76ers. It turns out he's terrible from beyond the arc. It's just against us, he's lights out. But I digress. Sam, take the floor. Did the Pacers win it, or did the Knicks lose it?
I want to say that they deserved it. I just think they have. It feels they've got a very much the vibe of the Raptors series, where like I know they had Kawhi, and you could argue Halliburton's a top 10 player, even though he got marked as overrated, and then he took that personally. So I can imagine the documentary Jordan style of him saying I took that personally. But they were lucky, as Ben said, the Celtics series. For me, Celtics are the best team in the East on paper, and I think if they were healthy, it would have made a difference. Us being healthy, because we beat them early in the season, so I was a bit biased from that. So I was like, we beat them early in the season. Like I know it was like a couple games in. So I wasn't sold on them, but they've taken advantage. You've still got to take advantage of what's there. You've got to beat what's in front of you. I know that's very much like a sort of term you use in sport when you're playing against poor teams, but you've got to beat who's there. And I think they thoroughly deserved their thing. And they completely destroyed the Knicks. So I think they got lucky to play the Knicks. And then when they got to the Knicks, they destroyed the Knicks and absolutely deserved the series. So I think it's a bit of both. They got lucky to get to the conference finals, but they absolutely deserved their win in the conference finals because the Knicks didn't have an answer for them really. And like Ben said, I feel like it's because Tibbs ran them in the ground, and there's all these rumours now about Tibbs, about Brunson's dad and the coaching. So there's clearly something going on there where the players weren't 100% with it. So whereas the Pacers seemed like there seems to be unity there. The Knicks gave that vibe last year, but I didn't buy into it. But then Pacers have got this unity there, and I think spirit in a team adds an extra 5% to you. So for me, they deserve that conference finals. Maybe they didn't deserve to get there because they got lucky with the injuries and stuff, but they absolutely deserved the win over the Knicks.
Yeah, I think the Pacers played such an attractive brand. Like I cannot stress enough. Like Halliburton for me has come out as what you'd call your 1A for me. This is him breaking out into the 1A brand of players in the league. Like he could be the best player on a title winning team as far as I'm concerned. And Siakam, like I said, he frustrates me. Because if you recall a couple years back, he was the one that gave Joel, I think he broke his orbital for a sort of flailing. Yeah. So I'm a bit not anti him, but I'm not his biggest fan. But unfortunately, you got to be like, you know what? He's had a stunning season. His game isn't the most aesthetically pleasing, so consequently doesn't get perhaps the credit he deserved. But I was really taken aback at his ability just to get the shots he wanted and at all three levels, really, and then do so with such reliability. And to have that sort of Swiss Army knife, a 6'10" power forward that can go just about anywhere, can drive, can shoot, it's invaluable. And it's not a lot of teams in the NBA have that. So you've got to really give Rick Carlisle a lot of credit as well for unleashing him, because it did seem as if he's lost his way in Toronto and he was sort of finding his feet a bit in Indiana, but he's very much rejuvenated, and him and Halliburton as a partnership is quite something. And just really quickly, Tony Bradley was getting serious minutes in this series.
Tony Bradley. Yeah.
He was actually, a really solid backup center. He had a bit of again, he's one of those players that had a bit of a cult around him. And of course, the one, the only TJ McConnell is now in the NBA finals. Which is just nice. Again, his mid-range shot, I'm still yet to see him miss. But it's really nice to see him get this far, and I would love to find a way to get him back on the Sixers. So New York, let's talk about New York. We mentioned before because it's funny, but can we really laugh? I mean, yes, but they have a set of fans who have perhaps put the cart before the horse ever so slightly, and they are left to eat humble pie. But they've got to now figure out what went wrong and also figure out who's going to lead them to the promised land. So what did go wrong? You got Jalen Brunson, who is widely considered as one of the most clutch players in the NBA, if not the most clutch. You've got Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, who are the perfect 3-and-D players and then some in the NBA, the two best, one of the two best. And then you've got Karl Anthony Towns, who's the best shooting 5 the NBA has ever seen. How exactly is this team not winning? In terms of balance, I'm seeing so much there.
The talk has been that Towns' defense was a big issue and got worse, apparently. Apparently, that's, again, rumors are rumors. You never know where they come from, and they can always be for a reason. But the current rumor coming out of New York is that Towns' defense became an issue towards the end of the season and through the playoffs for the players and for the coaching staff. And you have to wonder if losing their big guys now with Oklahoma last year, was that the turning point? Yes, they look like they're getting better when they got Towns, and offensively, much better, 100%. But defensively, I worry that that's where they've gone wrong. And then, like both myself and Sam have mentioned, Tibbs runs them into the ground. Someone like Hart, we talked about how poor he is against every team other than us. And that could be because we're not moving the basketball. Hence, he doesn't have much to do on defense, just stands around. He's got that energy in him. He's a 10, 15-minute player, a half, a max. So, he's got that energy in him. He can hit those threes and annoy the hell out of us for another season. You have to wonder if that plays a part. But yeah, the current rumor I heard I noticed the other day was there's a concern that Towns' defense wasn't as committed to it as he possibly should have been, which is weird because he's played like next to Gobert for the last few years.
Yeah, that's a really, really intriguing point. I mean, it seems daft that of all times you wouldn't up the ante in the playoffs, but it does seem they were scheming against it. I mean, I know the Knicks tried to compensate for that by having the old Mitchell Robinson there. But Sam, did Hacker Mitch take you back down memory lane at all?
Wow. I mean, I don't know what's worse in the NBA, like either people buying flagrant fouls or people fouling people knowing that they're poor free throw shooters, and it makes it unwatchable. So thankfully, when I watched the games, because I was a couple of times where the last last week or two, I've not slept very well, so I have caught part of the games, and I was just like, ugh. And then I remember like there was obviously back to back, and I remember waking up one night and I think it was it was TNT one that had the East Coast, and Reggie Miller was talking about the hacking and stuff, and then I fell asleep, and the next day I was like still tired, so I watched the West Coast and the ESPN. They're talking about how great SGA is, and I'm like, he's buying fouls. So it was like both are just really unreliable. So I'm kind of glad they haven't met each other in the final, because that's probably what it'd be. It'd be SGA one end being buying fouls and Brunson the other end, and then hacking fouls as well. It would have been an unbearable series. So it probably worked out well in the end. Although you could probably do it with Turner, I suppose. He's not the best free throw shooter either. I mean, he's got better over the years, but yeah, it did a little bit. But at least he's not afraid to take them, unlike Mr. Simmons, who just well, I don't know how someone with all that ability just doesn't want to get better. It still baffles me to this day. But well, wouldn't you want to practice doing those shots? But hey, it did a little bit. Yes,
it is incredible how it's it's the 5th of June 2025, and we've still got a quote on a Sixers podcast saying, "Why is it Simmons still won't get better at free throws?" The bloke lives in our head rent free. But yeah, it just felt so like, oh yeah, I've seen all this before, and you're right, it is mundane, it is dull, and it is like watching paint dry, and thank goodness that is done. But it certainly lowers the stock of Mitchell Robinson, and you also look at that New York team in terms of, right, they need to find a way to get better. They've got rid of all of their draft assets to send them to Brooklyn, and then you look at the rest of the team. There's not a lot to trade. I mean, fine, you could maybe do a Josh Hart and Deuce McBride package, but there's quite literally not a lot there that you can work with. So how they try and figure this out, there is a way in which you can figure this out, don't get me wrong, but how they do it is going to be really interesting, because they're going to have to be really clever. really, really clever with the trades, with the free agency pickups to get this squad over the line. So Tibbs obviously got fired. Some would say harshly. I'm of the idea that he's just taken him as far as he could. I do understand the opposite viewpoint, but ultimately they've got to find a new coach. Has anyone thought really about who that would be? I mean, has anyone thought, oh, you know what, he would do a great job in New York? And I think that finding a coach, a successor in the NBA is so hard, especially when you compare it to football. You've got a list of 10 immediate candidates in football when there's a coach available, or rather when you need to fill a vacancy. And you just got to look at what happened at Southampton. We're quite literally the worst team in the Premier League, and we had a plethora of managers look to try and come to us. But in the NBA, you've got to take a bit of a leap of faith and just run on with sometimes what is considered a randomer. I mean, the Phoenix Suns have just picked on a random assistant. So who should New York go for?
It's a tough question for him. There's so many coaches have been fired, and you sort of ask yourself, if you do your research, why has that happened? Is it systematic? Like, is it the culture they bring? So you can understand why the Suns have potentially gone out of the way and brought someone in who you don't recognize, or unless you're a complete nerd of coaches, you won't know who this guy is. And you've got to think they might, if the Knicks are smart, and they're not, but if they suddenly find it somewhere to be smart, they would possibly look down that same route.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any big names. I think they're going to have to be clever and cute with it. We always talk about, your Monty Williams, but like, is he it? Is he the guy? So it will be really, really intriguing to see how that pans out for him. So I did also see a really interesting stat. There's been very few coaches. I think we're looking at the bottom numbers of people who inherit a team and then immediately go on to win a finals. Normally it's a process. I hate to coin the term again, but it is normally a process. So to see how that pans out will be really interesting. And hopefully it's just another team that's going to be in a bit of disarray that could maybe just fall beneath us along with the Boston Celtics. That's the hope, at least. So we go back out west, and there's probably a lot less to say out west beyond, Minnesota, valiant effort, don't quite have enough. OKC are just extremely, extremely good. I imagine we're both in the same ballpark thinking OKC are probably the favorites here. Do the Pacers have a chance of beating them? And if they do, how do they beat them, Sam?
I think, like I said, I think the Pacers, you look at how they beat Cleveland in the first round. They were very much good at guarding, marking. I'm using football terms here. I thought he did a really good job on Mitchell. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to compare Mitchell and an SGA, but they had a good system there. Cleveland have good guards. Oakland have obviously got SGA. So I think from that perspective, I think they've got that match there, and they can potentially win the game with defense. I think if you try and have a shootout, I think OKC are going to win the shootout. Personally, I know Halliburton can go off. The Phillies are losing 1-0, by the way, and they're going to lose another one. But yeah, so I don't know what it's gonna be like if they try and have a shootout. I don't think Pacers can compete in a shootout. So I think defensively, if the Pacers can do what they did against the Cavs, and then obviously look, and you could argue with the Bucks as well, but obviously it was Giannis. So I think if it becomes a defensive game, low scoring game, the Pacers will win. If it ends up being that it's going to be a high scoring games, it's going to be OKC, because I think if you want to go tit for tat, OKC are going to beat you every time. But the Pacers have got to play really good defense and then probably get those fast break attacks. Again, similar style of play how they played against the Cavs in the first round is probably how they're going to have to deal with this in this round, because the Knicks, Brunson's great, but he's shorter, talk about short guards and stuff. They've got a smaller backcourt, SGA is a little bit taller, so he's got a bit more length to him, so he's harder to guard. So for me, I think it's got to be down to how the Pacers play defense, and if they can control the scoring a little bit, not to go tit for tat with the OKC, because otherwise OKC will win that battle.
I mean, it sounds like it's basically got to the point of you've got to get aggressive and you've got to be pretty, certain of your movements. So you can't really afford to have those split-second worries or decisions. You just got to be like, right, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And you are right. I mean, that height advantage. I mean, again, we talked about, albeit tongue-in-cheek, TJ McConnell being automatic from mid-range. If TJ McConnell's automatic from mid-range, I don't know what SGA is, because that bloke does not miss. He really, really doesn't. So, I mean, the way I see it, I look at the guards, as in I look at who's guarding whom. Someone's going to have to get Hartenstein. Someone's going to have to get Chet. Someone's going to have to get J-Dub. Someone's going to have to get SGA. And then one of Caruso, Wallace. I don't think they've got the size. I mean, Nemhard's good. Neesmith is decent. They just don't have that size to really match up with everybody. And I think that could really tell. But if we talked all about SGA, we know how good he is. But if you were the Pacers, apart from SGA, who is that second guy that you need to keep an eye on?
I think it changes, doesn't it? I think a couple of games of theirs I've watched. One night it's one person, the other night it's another. I think the front court height's going to bother the Pacers a lot. They can go quite tall up front, but like Sam says, the defense is key. It's such a difficult series to pick. I think, Sam, you've nailed it on the head in terms of what's going to decide it. I think that's the defense of the Pacers is that point where we're going to fall one way or the other with who we get. But Oklahoma being so young, you have got to wonder if that inexperience will play into it. A couple of times I saw them, and I thought, you're making mistakes that you won't make in a year or two's time. But yeah, I still think their athleticism might win the day.
And you got Isaiah Joe, who will be another one of our former Sixers in a finals. So you can see it. Thing is with we mentioned him. He's one of those players that could just get 6 out of 8 from 3 on a random game 5. So it's just having that weapons that they've got. And we talked about Wallace, Caruso, the defensive powerhouses that they have. So I feel like, again, the vibe is we all seem to give OKC the edge. But let's just see, what are we thinking? What's the prediction here, Sam? Let's start with you. What's the prediction?
Well, I've got to be wrong. So I said the Knicks would pretty much. I said it'd be a gentleman's sweep, so I was completely wrong. I'll go 4-2 OKC. I think the traveling doesn't help, so I do think the travel from east to west is there. So I'm gonna go 4-2.
That is a long old flight. What is it about? Well, in domestic traveling terms, it was what, 3-4 hours? Indianapolis to Oklahoma City.
I know. I guess
never done that journey before.
Not done that journey. I mean, I suppose it's better than going from OKC across to probably Philadelphia, New York. I suppose so. It's a little bit closer to because obviously it's more central Pacers, isn't it? Indiana's more than us. Right, we're right on the East Coast. If you're playing the Celtics or the Sixers or the Knicks.
What are you thinking, Ben?
Well, just to go back to your point about travel, the Thunder has always been the one team when they've talked about realignment and bringing more teams in that have been thought to be brought across to the East because they're close enough, like you just said, Sam, they're close enough that they could be an Eastern Conference team in the future. But yeah, I can see it going 7, but I think it's going to go 6, and I think it's going to be Oklahoma.
Right. Well, I'm going to be contrarian for the sake of it. I am still going OKC, but I'm going to go OKC in 7. I would love a game 7. I just want a competitive series. I don't know, it felt as if Indiana just got such a firm grasp of that series towards the end that it didn't feel like they were going to lose it. And likewise, Oklahoma had the Minnesota series before it even started. So to finish with a bang would be great after what has been an outrageously good playoffs. It would be so great. And likewise, I saw something really frustrated me. It was I want to say it was ESPN. I could be wrong. They had Adam Silver on and said, "Is it bad for the NBA that small markets are in this final?" So I guess that's going to be on my last question for you guys. Is it bad for the NBA if small markets are in this final? Ben, do you want to take this one?
From a money point of view, they're going to say yes, because advertisers are not going to want to pay all out what they would normally pay for, say, a Lakers Knicks or a Boston, or any other sort of West Coast more high profile team. So from that point of view, you can understand where that talk comes from, because the money's just not going to be there. There's not going to be people buying the advertisements at the level that they do. From a sort of watch numbers point of view, I can see it actually being quite heavily watched. I can see a lot of people watching this one because of that excitement of the young players. People like Halliburton, people like SGA. They bring people to the TV. There's not many guys or what. Even in the East Coast of the States, we all know people who live over there, and staying up to watch West Coast teams can sometimes be as bad as us trying to watch the Sixers. Sometimes, because it can be 11, 12 o'clock East Coast time before first tip. But people will stay up to watch SGA and watch that team, like you said, Ben, is automatic from mid-range. So I think there's still enough in there for the audiences to turn up. I just don't think the investment will be there, and it depends. So it'll depend on how you look at it. If you look at it from advertising revenue, which I know the other sports leagues in the States always look at, then the answer is going to be no. It's not going to be that popular. And the guys you're talking about were 100% right. But if you look at it from an audience point of view, I think there'll be a lot more people watching than people expect.
And what do you think, Sam? I mean, we've got the financial, we've got the audience and viewership. It's a question like that. I mean, I look at that and I think, what's the point of being a fan if the view is always, why the hell isn't it Lakers Knicks? I mean, if you're a Thunder fan or you're a Pacers fan right now and you hear that, you must think how patronizing, how arrogant, how it completely goes against the very nature of sports. So I mean, I guess if we put the fan hat on now and perhaps go full-blown tribal, because the thing is with the Sixers, we're not a small market, but we're not a big market. We're medium market. So this is something that could easily be said about us. And honestly, if someone said this about us and we got to the finals after all this hard graft and work, I think I'd hit the roof.
Yeah, I think we used to be a massive market for the Sixers. Obviously, generally, I think we're the fifth or sixth largest sports market, but it's mainly because of the Eagles and the Phillies. Because 20 years ago, the Phillies weren't even part really of the conversation. Baseball wasn't as popular as basketball in Philadelphia because of how bad they were. It's very much I don't want to say bandwagon because it's hard to have season tickets for all four teams, right? So I think for the Sixers, we very much are in that middle market, like you say. And I think the thing with the Pacers and Oklahoma is, well, more so Oklahoma, because I think, if I'm right, is a bigger state than Indiana. So it's got potential to be a massive market. So it could help grow the sport there and create it. And like Ben said, I think Ben hit it on the head. From an advertising perspective, it probably isn't, but will people go and watch it? Same when you look at, teams going to Wembley, at the last weekend, in football and soccer, if you're American, the team getting into the Football League, there was complaints that both teams could have sold more than the 30,000 allocation, but they're playing in front of 8,000 regularly, but there's more fans. So I think, maybe in the OKC market and in the Indiana market, you might be able to do a little bit more, and you've got to try and go for that. But nationwide, across America, or even internationally, the advertisers probably aren't going to pay those big bucks like they would like by default for the Super Bowl. But yeah, you would be hurt if you was a fan and you'd be, people were questioning that. But there's people that like the NBA isn't always about the team. It's about it's a player driven league. And one of my friend's sons, he's well, hopefully he's going to make it as a pro. He's in the Saints Academy, but he said to me, I like playing his mate said to me, oh, I like playing NBA and that. You like basketball? I was like, yeah. And I was like, who do you like? And he said straight away SGA. Like he knew SGA, and he's not a massive basketball fan. He's just started getting into it. So the influence of social media and these players, and be able to see quick highlights on X, who's a highlight reel by default on X probably at the moment, and on Facebook is probably SGA. You know, he's the highlight reel. When we were younger, it was Kobe, LeBron, AI, you know, or maybe for me and Ben S rather than you, Ben, you're a little bit younger than us, Ben G. But so yes, it's very much the player drives the league. It's not always about the teams itself. You know, like you say, if you had to choose the top 5, 6 teams, you wouldn't put those 2 in there, or even the top 10, you wouldn't put those 2 in there. But they've got players that are top 5, like probably Halliburton's probably top 5 watch highlights in the playoffs this year because of how he's performed.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And I guess this sort of all harks back to is just the passing of the torch. Gone are the days of LeBron and KD, Kawhi, and now it's the era of Halliburton, SGA, and whatever other young guy wants to start picking up the mantle, and Anthony Edwards, of course. So it's quite an exciting time. It's that transition point, and once again, it's going to be another team that wins it for the first time, which is really, really exciting. I think that's one of the best times you can have. So yeah, that's all we got time for. When I say all we got time for, we've nearly hit an hour. I think we've just been chatting. So it's been really, really great. So firstly, Ben, thanks for coming on. Where can we find you online if we wanted to drop your follow?
Most of my socials are at Ben Scaife, so just keep a lookout for me. I pop up. If you follow Sam already or yourself, you can usually find me because I follow both of you on pretty much everything. Or any of the PSI pages, I'm on there as well.
Brilliant. So likewise, you will find Ben whenever there's something to get angry about. He will be there. So he's very easy.
Mention Tobias Harris at all.
Sam, where can we find you?
Yeah, very similar. X Sam UK Sixers fan, and yeah, PSI channels as well. So yeah, have a look on those, and you'll find us. And yeah, not as angry as Ben. So hopefully, I'll be a little bit more reasonable.
So brilliant. Thank you so much. So of course, yeah, you can find me at UK76ers on X, on Instagram, of course, part of the Philly Sports International group, where you can find that at Philly Sports International. We've got loads of really cool prizes coming up. Hopefully you've got your predictions in time for game 1. By the time this has gone up, unfortunately, it will be of too late. So I really hope you got that in. Free jersey potentially going your way. Fellas, just quickly, Sam, if you were lucky enough to get that free jersey, what color you going? Who you getting on the back?
I'll get whatever draft pick we get, and I'll go with the white.
White and the draft pick. Ben, what you thinking?
If the rumors are true, I'll hold off and to see what our special edition night jerseys are this year, because I've got a funny feeling they might be the same color as this T-shirt.
Oh, clever. Oh,
yeah, good shout.
Now, this is what it's only a rumor. I know we haven't got a lot of time to go over it, but it's only a rumor. But the rumor is, and I follow a lot of jersey sites on X, so if you follow me on X, you'll see them because I'll retweet them and repost them. And it is a rumor that they are trying to bring that as the extra jersey for certain classic teams, and we have been named as one of them. So I'm hoping that's going to happen.
That'll fly off. That'll fly off.
If that happens, it will be the top. It will be the first round pick.
Well, if we make one. If you win, that means I'm going to have to be up at the crack of dawn to get onto the site to get all of that in. I hope, for all intents and purposes, Ben, you do not win that competition. But anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, of course, to you, Ben, for taking time out your day to come join us. We'll get back on soon, no doubt. Guys, we'll see you all later, and hopefully we'll have some good news to report just before the draft for next time. See you later.
Thank you.